A very good evening and welcome to a brand new edition of Face to Face, coming to you direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo, bringing you face to face as always. I am Jayawickreme of the Newsfirst team. And this evening we have a returning guest on the show. He is no stranger to the show and very vocal about all things political, economic and things that he believes should be put right. He is none other than Rehan Jayawickreme of the Samagi Janapala, former chairman of the Waligama Urban Council, former vice chairman of the SJB Youth and current chief organizer of the Waligama electorate. That's quite a handful. A very good evening to you, Rehan, and welcome back on the show.
Good evening, Jayman.
So, Rehan, to get the ball rolling on this evening's discussion, we know that the presidential election has been announced. 21st of September is the date, and notwithstanding any attempts to subvert or scuttle the election, plans will go ahead and the election will be held, and the SJB, being the main opposition of the country, I'm sure are very confident of crossing the line as the victor. Can you tell me how the preparations are like for the elections, how the grassroots are aligning and you're rallying your troops in preparation for the 21st of September?
We have started work, not just now, but we've started work for a long time now, because we not only did we anticipate elections, but we knew that elections had to happen. No matter how many times Mr. Wickremesinghe tried to delay it, Mr. Premadasa has been doing his rounds. He's, I think, covered almost all the districts that he has to. I think 17th is the end day for the nomination, and soon after the nominations are given, he is planning on visiting each district again and also each electorate in the country, which amounts to a total of 160 something.
Okay, so what are the preparations like in the Waligama electorate where you're the chief organizer? How is the pulse of the people? Are they aligning with the SJB? What about their opponents or your political opponents? How are they standing in the Waligama electorate? I want to get your honest opinion.
So Waligama has 67 polling booths and 86 Grama Sevaka wards, polling wards. So we've covered almost each and every one of them. We are having grassroots meetings within the next few days. We're going to start our presidential run as well. So by the time August 17th hits, we plan on finishing all 86 Grama Sevaka wards twice over.
I see. So my next question might be a bit sentimental, but I hope that you can also answer in that same light. I was going through social media recently and I came across a very hard-hitting quote. It says, the tragedy of life is not so much what men suffer but rather what they miss. And I believe for more than 76 years since Sri Lanka gained independence, Sri Lankans, men and women alike, have missed out on so much, mainly due to political mismanagement of the country, economic mismanagement of the country, and it all came to a massive capitulation in 2022 with the economic crisis and the Aragale and so on. But again, I'm sure you have pointed this out time and time again in various fora. What does the Samagi Janapala bring to the table that other political opponents in the country or those who are vying for presidency or the reins to the country do not?
Jayamal, first up, this whole notion of nothing good has happened for the past 76 years, I don't agree with it. Because if you look at the economic surplus during the time that Ranasinghe Premadasa, the late President Ranasinghe Premadasa, was president of the country, you have to sort of go into that time and see the economic progress that he made.
I see.
We were surplus in so many ways. For example, when he started the garment factories, that's still a huge breadwinner for our economy as of now. If he didn't make that choice then, we wouldn't have a garment industry the way that we won't have a robust garment industry that we have now. So the fact that when you say that nothing has been done for 76 years, I thoroughly disagree with that. But I believe that from 2007, post 2007 was when I think the economic mismanagement actually took place. And I have to say that even during the Yahapalne time, there was severe economic mismanagement. If you look at what happened with the bond scam. Now some people say the bond scam did happen, but it did. It didn't happen, but it did happen.
In fact, it did.
Which is one of the main reasons why the SJB was formed, because we couldn't stay with a group that robbed the central bank. So I think I like to re-emphasize or emphasize on the fact that the economic mismanagement started post 2017.
All right. So let's come to a more contemporary topic which has made headlines over the past few weeks. The issue concerning the IGP and the Supreme Court's verdict regarding the IGP. Some people say that elections might not be able to go ahead without a permanent IGP, and now it has turned to a constitutional crisis where the judiciary and the parliament, the legislature, are at loggerheads over this decision. The president has wiped his hands clean, saying that he's a candidate at the upcoming polls and he cannot decide on the matter, although the constitution says so. And some are viewing this as an attempt to subvert or to scuttle plans for the election to be held on the 21st of September. I want to get your reading on the matter and the party's reading, and what you will take or the measures you will take to ensure that the presidential election does go ahead as planned.
Number one, theoretically, let's say the presidential election is called, the nominations are over on the 17th of August.
On the 15th.
15th of August. The election date has been set to the 21st.
Right.
Now, I'm just saying hypothetically, what if a serving IGP died during this process?
Right. Hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
With all due respect.
With all due respect. Again, hypothetically, what happens in the situation that an IGP
passes away?
Then what happens? Are they going to cancel elections? So this is all nonsense, this is utter rubbish. Now, let me tell you, Sri Lanka is the only country in the world where when an apex court, this is not a magistrate court, this is not a high court, this is not the appeal court, this is the Supreme Court of the country. Now, when they make a verdict, we have legislators in parliament saying that they don't agree with the judgment, or the government doesn't agree with the judgment. Now, what sort of bad precedents does that set? You know, I'll give you a good example. So, Pakistan. When you look at Pakistan, you see plenty of lower courts giving adverse judgments against former PM Imran Khan.
Yes.
But then you get the Supreme Court reversing it. Now, does anyone not accept it? No, they don't. But it's only in Sri Lanka where the legislator and the executive think that it's okay to go on a head-on collision with the Supreme Court. Now, Jamal, let me give you a excuse what these guys are using now. They are trying to say that Andhra Bandaranayake, the former speaker, in the early 2000s, made a judgment about the supremacy of Parliament or the integrity of Parliament. Now, that case, a lot of people don't know this because they don't delve into these things. But what happened there was that Parliament appointed a select committee to investigate the actions of then CJ Sarathen Silva. Then the Supreme Court got involved in some way. Then the Speaker made a ruling that when it comes to selecting these committees, Parliament is paramount. Right? Now that is a complete different scenario, Jayamal, to what is happening now. Now what is happening is that there were 9 fundamental rights petitions about the legality of the Constitutional Council's decision. And they passed their determination. So that is completely different from Parliament appointing a select committee. This is the other way around.
Because the Constitutional Council is not a parliamentary committee.
Yes, and also the current IGP was convicted of torture. A case dating far back as 2010 or 2007, and he was given a suspended sentence. So we have technically, that is why the opposition refused senior DIG Deshbandhu's name. It's because how can you trust the police to be headed by someone who has been given a verdict on torture? That is not ethically right, it is not morally right, and it's completely wrong. So I mean, but these fundamental rights petitions had absolutely nothing to do with any of that. It is about the Speaker who, you know, in a very arbitrary manner exercised his duties when his vote was supposed to be the deciding vote. The Speaker can't vote unless it's the deciding vote. And the Speaker voted knowing the fact that it was not the deciding vote. And all what the Supreme Court said was that they are issuing an injunction order, a joining order against IGP, and they instructed the President to appoint a new IG or acting IG.
In the interim.
Interim IG. Now, are you telling me, or are people saying, are they serious when they say that, you know, there is no one to appoint? There's a massive line of seniority going down to 10, 15 people who can be appointed as IG. So just the fact that the president is using the selected powers that he has, let me reiterate that, not elected, the selected powers that he's using to undermine the independence of the judiciary. So I think Mr. Salia Piri spoke about this in great detail. The Bar Association is not going to take this lightly. The Samagi Jana Balavegi is not going to take this lightly. And I can assure the government that only the president is legally immune. But if the cabinet plays any hand in this, we are going to file contempt of court petitions against all of these people. Which is why even when they instructed or requested the speaker to make a ruling similar to Andu Bandaranaike, the speaker, no matter how biased he is, he said he refused it because he knows that this is not a joke. So I caution the cabinet to not blindly follow the advice of their leader or the president, because we will definitely, I can tell you, guaranteed, even if I have to file the petitions, I will do it. I have done so before, I will do it again, I will do it today. I did it yesterday, I will do it today, and I will do it tomorrow. We will go to the Supreme Court, and I urge the cabinet not to act in arbitrary manner, because what you are going against is the constitution of the country and the sovereignty of our people.
So Samagi Jana Balavegi is very aware of the legal impediments and the legal workings of the country. Moving on from that matter to the presidential election, Rehan. We know historically presidential elections have been more or less a two-horse race from 2019 to 2015 and so on. But this time around, there seems to be multiple candidates who have a fair proportion of the vote in Sri Lanka. And when that does happen, the matter of the second ballot or the preferential vote comes into play. Have you thought of any sort of consequence or any sort of contingency plan to obtain that preferential vote for your presidential candidate should neither candidate fail to obtain 50% at the upcoming election?
So the only thing we can do regarding that aspect is to educate the masses on how to use this vote. Now this will be a very special election, because even now if you go the traditional way, it's always a cross next to the name. But this time, if you're voting for, let's say, 3 candidates, there has to be 1, you circle 1. Next to a candidate, you circle 2 as your second preference. And if you have a third preference, you circle 3. So it's very important, and it's of paramount importance that the Elections Commission, it's their duty to notify. It's also our duty as a political party. But it's also the duty of the Elections Commission to educate the people on a daily basis on how these votes should be cast. Because knowing the fact that a majority of us Sri Lankans are not very savvy to this voting system, this should be what's in their head. 1 is your first preference, 2 is your second preference, and if you have a third, 3, and you circle that, and that's your third preference.
Understood. So from what you can do as the SJB, one thing that a lot of people are looking forward to is the SJB's manifesto, or presidential candidate Sajith Premadasa's manifesto, if he does come to power, what he plans on doing with the country. We know that the blueprint has already been published, and that is more of an economic driver for the country. But what about the other sectors of the country? When do you plan on publishing Sajith Premadasa's presidential election manifesto?
I think realistically speaking, Jayamal, that has to happen after the nominations are handed over. There is no point of us doing so before.
Is it not in the works even now?
It is in the works, and we already finalized it. We just have a little bit of things to add, things that we think that is going to be productive towards this nation and its people. And that will be out soon, and it will be out in less than 2 to 3 weeks.
So talking about alliances and political support you have from political members of parliament or those in the grassroots, regional politicians and so on, we saw how certain members of the Samagi Jana Balavegi crossed over when President Ranil Wickremesinghe ascended to power. And we now see Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca, who was formerly of the SJB, he has presented himself as a candidate. We see partly Champika Ranawaka, who was also aligned with the SJB at one point, going his own way with his own party. And we saw Vadivel Suresh becoming an advisor to the president, who is also a very strong supporter of the SJB in previous times. We will more or likely see that there will be certain defections in days to come. The SJB might gain some ground with political representatives. The SJB might lose some political representatives. And when it's election season, this is something that is truly unavoidable, especially here in Sri Lanka. And one particular criticism that the SJB has received is those who are formerly of the SLPP now advocating for the SJB. For example, Professor G.L. Piris, Nalaka Godaheva, people like Lakshmanayapa Abevardhana, and Vasantayapa Abevardhana. And if I may put this in more of a pop culture context, this would be like Robert Downey Jr. giving up the post of, or the character of Iron Man, and taking up the character of Doomsday, saying that new mask, same task. And we know the common saying, old wine in new bottles. And when it comes to election season, how do you expect the people to believe that this group that Sajith Premadasa is surrounded by will actually make a difference should he come to power, and they are the people who are supporting him?
Life will never be perfect in any aspect. There'll always be perfect things, but there'll also be imperfections.
Right.
And when it comes to taking people in, now you mentioned Professor G.L. Piris. I have to categorically say that Professor G.L. Piris, irrelevant of who he has supported, brings a wealth of experience into any political party that he belongs to. I have to be very honest with you and tell you that, because I don't know whether you know this, Jamal, but Professor G.L. Piris is an author of many law books in Sri Lanka. There are multiple laws that Professor G.L. Piris formulated that is used in court today. Right. That being said, I didn't agree with his political ideologies before, but now I do. Because he made a move. He could have easily stayed back with the Rajapakshas. He could have easily taken a ministry with Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, but he chose not to do it. That being said, I can't say that about everyone that has joined us. I'm not going to go into detail, but I also have to believe in collective responsibility.
Right.
And the party leader has made a decision. Certain times I have disagreed with him.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, he is my leader. I trust his judgment, and it's up to the people. If they want, they can either elect the people that we put in, and the people that they don't agree with, they can put out. So again, it's the right of the people. But I say again that I have absolute faith and trust in Sajith Premadasa. And after he becomes president, it will be clear to everyone what a mistake they made by not electing him in 2019 and electing Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Right, okay. So that boils down to the matter of parliamentary elections. If Sajith Premadasa does win the presidential election that is upcoming, when does the SJB hope to dissolve parliament, or will it carry on until the tenure of parliament is expired and then call for parliamentary elections, or will a general election be called immediately after?
A general election will be called almost immediately after Sajith Premadasa assumes duties as the 9th executive president of the country.
Right.
Purely because we cannot work with the mandate of the SLPP.
Okay.
We don't want to waste a day because he is going to pass some very crucial legislation.
Right.
I can tell you, you will be surprised as to how many legislative acts that Sajith Premadasa will pass in this country.
Right.
So for him to do that, we need to be in parliament. The SJB needs to be in parliament. And we will dissolve parliament.
Right. So,
but that being said, it can't be done in a way that Andrew Kumar Disanayaka says, where he says he's going to dissolve it overnight. There's no chance you can do it overnight.
Right.
There's a process. But we will dissolve parliament. We will not let parliament run its full term. We will dissolve parliament.
Has Sajith Premadasa also decided on a maximum limit of cabinet ministers like Andrew Kumar Disanayaka?
He will make it a very minimum amount of cabinet ministers, because we already have our party. And as you know, just because a parliament is dissolved, the cabinet remains. Harsha De Silva will be a cabinet minister.
Right.
Mr. Rehan Jayawickreme, Kabir Hashim, Mr. Lakshman Kiriyalla, Mr. Ranjit Madhu Bandara. So he will appoint a minimum cabinet. He will entrust responsibilities not to multiple people, where he can appoint one person instead of all that and give responsibilities to one.
Yes.
So he will do that. And we will appoint a good cabinet. We will go for elections. We will win. We will form a government and we will change the country.
Right. Quite a positive outlook there from Rehan. So I must ask you, if the SJB does win and Sajid Premadasa does become the president, we know it's common knowledge that during the development of Singapore, one of the bedrocks of its success was the formula of MPH, meritocracy, pragmatism and honesty. Can you tell me how Sajid Premadasa will entail, although he might not or might follow the formula, but how will he entail those three elements to ensure that this country moves forward in a positive light?
It is because of meritocracy that he believes in the younger generation, which is why someone like me can come and sit in front of you and speak about the things so openly, about the things that he's going to do. He will be one of the best, or if not the best presidents that we have ever had.
Okay.
He has a tremendous amount of integrity. He has a tremendous amount of loyalty towards his people, and more than anything, he's a very learned man.
Right.
He's a learned politician. If you sit down with him for 5 minutes, he can speak from everything ranging from national defense to economics, and at the same time he can talk about a Premier League football team.
Right.
He can talk about cricket, he can talk about sports, you name it. There is no one more knowledgeable in this country to lead other than Sajid Premadasa, and it's sad for us to see that the country lost this man in 2019. You know, he contested while all cards were stacked against him. Ranil Wickremesinghe was working overtime to make him lose. We didn't even get the elephant symbol. You know, we had to get another symbol, and the telephone was the only symbol that we had. And he sacrificed himself for the betterment of the country, when he could have easily skipped that election and contested this election, where the country would have come crumbling down. But you know, he did what's right with the people. Now see what happened, Jamal. What happens when you have unholy alliances with unholy people? The ending is also unholy. And President Wickremesinghe witnessed that at what happened at the Politburo Bureau of the SLPP.
Yes.
Right? But what would have happened if President Wickremesinghe didn't jump and take that? You know, we would have appointed our own government. We would have dissolved parliament after the first tranche of the IMF. Country would have had a stable parliament by now. But what does the country have now? Country is as unstable as it has ever been, Jamal. And all because of what? All because of one man's power-thirsty greed for power, for absolute power. Which is why I say he was not elected, he was selected by the SLPP. And where has that, what are the changes he has made? People say no queues. That's the bare minimum, no? Isn't that a human right? Isn't that the right that we have to access to for us to have essentials? And where are we now?
So with this latest development of the SLPP deciding to field their own candidate, this really puts in doubt the support President Wickremesinghe will receive from the SLPP, and now he might have to, as decided or as predicted, might have to be a common candidate. And we know that the United National Party is the ancestral home of the SJB. Given this development, if President Wickremesinghe does extend an olive branch to the Samagizana Palawege, saying that let's shun our differences and work together, is there any scenario where the Samagizana Palawege, led by Sajid Premadasa, runs or contests with the United National Party?
We will never join forces with someone that has betrayed the people of this country and the mandate of the people of this country. People wanted this government out. People started Aragalaya. People lost their lives. People fought. Even President Wickremesinghe encouraged Aragalaya. Wanted tourists to come to Sri Lanka and hold boards saying go home. What did he do? He created the most unholy alliance known in Sri Lankan politics. And we have absolutely no faith in him. We have absolutely no trust in him. If he wanted to join with us, Do you know the perfect time he could have done it? Was when the Supreme Court gave a verdict against those that were responsible for the economic crisis. That's when he should have extended olive branch and said, sorry, I cannot work with the SLPP. Now I invite Sajith Premadasa to come and become the Prime Minister of this country. I invite Harsha to come and become the Finance Minister. I encourage Sajith to form his own cabinet. Let me do this in the interim and then let's go for election. But his power hungriness is the cost of all this, which is why they say, you quoted a comic book and I will quote, I love comic books by the way.
I know.
And I will quote Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. And he had great power and he has zero accountability, zero responsibility.
Face to Face goes into detail on all things, including comic books and pop culture. We must cross over for a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with Rehan Jayawickreme of the Samagana Balawega. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Newsfirst, face to face with Jamal Ratnayaka.
Don't let the country go backwards.
අන්තිමට ගොඩේ කෙල්ල ආරෙන් ඉස්සරහා ඔයා වැරදිකාරියෙක් කළා.
ඔයාට අම්ම කෙනෙක් වෙන්න බැහැනේ නේද?
ඇරි බේබිව ඔයාගෙනුත් ඈත් කරවලා දායි. ඒක එලි දරව් කළා මාව වලලන්නද හදන්නේ?
ඔයා හරිම පටු විදියට නේද හිතන්න පුරුදු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මට දැන් නිදහසේ හොයලා බලන්න පුළුවන් ඉම්ලි ටැබ්ලට්ස් බිව්වද? බිව්වේ නැද්ද කියලා.
जैसे देखे ये जहां है वैसा ही
අද රාත්‍රී 9:30ට සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන්
Step away from the conventional art of storytelling. Get ready for the Newsfirst Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfikar Farzan.
We live in a world of progress, but what if progress isn't reaching everyone? Millions of Sri Lankans struggle without access to clean water, safe roads and bridges to a better life. But you have reached out. You have touched their lives. Thank you, Sri Lanka, for making Gammadda the most impactful rural development movement in our nation. Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
Experience the ultimate robot battle at Electro Combat 2024. Join us on August 3rd, 8 a.m. at the Faculty of Technology, University of Sri Jayawardenepura. Free entrance for everyone. Thrilling robot combat awaits. Media sponsor, TV1.
මගේ දරුවට ඉගැන්නුවේ කඩේ මේ තත්ත්වයට ගෙනාවේ මගේ මහන්සියේ. ඔය කාගේවත් උදව් වෙන්නේ නෙමෙයි.
අගමැති භූපති මීළඟ ජනපති.
කණ්ඩ දුන්නු අත අපාකාපු එකෙක් කොරණකම් බලා හිටපන්. උකුන්ගේ කැවුතු කණ්ඩෝනේ.
දැන් අපි ඉතින් වයසයිනේ. ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ තරුණ පරම්පරාව තමයි එන්න ඕනේ මේ ගවේෂණාත්මක මාධ්‍යවේදීන් හැටියට ඉස්සරහට.
මේ මෙස්සා අද රාත්‍රී 9ට සිරස TV තුලින්.
If you want to create your life, create it. This is your opportunity to change your destiny. සඳහි දක්ෂිණ ද්‍රවයට ගොඩ පැසූ අතර මේ ඔවුන්ගේ චන්ද්‍ර ගවේෂණයේ පළමු මෙහෙයුමයි. Dreamcasters Witness Season 4, Saturday at 6:30 p.m. on TV1.
Don't let the country go backwards.
ඇත්තමයි එයා ඔයත් එක්ක හැපි හිටිය හැටියට මං හිතුවේ එයාගේ හිතේ ඔයා ගැන මොකක් හරි තියනවා කියලා.
පව් කතා කියන්න එපා බං. ඌයි මායි එක බරේ නොහිටපු එක විතරයි.
ආයුෂ් එහෙමගේ ළමයා එහෙමගේ කුසේ හිටිය ළමයා.
මේ දරුවා මගේ වුණත් ඔයාගේ කුසේ හිටපු දරුවා ගැන මට ලොකු කැක්කමක් තියෙන ඔයාට වඩා.
අක්කේ මාර කේස් එකනේ. මොකද්ද කේස් එකකට බැන්ඩෝ ග්‍රෑන්ඩ් පාසල්දී මාට්ටු වෙලා.
කියා දෙන්න ආදරේ තරම් අද රාත්‍රී 8:30ට
සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන්.
මම මගේ දරුවට ඉගැන්නුවේ කඩේ මේ තත්ත්වයට ගෙනාවේ මගේ මහන්සියේ. ඔය කාගේවත් උදව් වෙන්නේ නෙමෙයි.
අගමැති භූපති
මීළඟ ජනපති.
කණ්ඩ දුන්නු අත අපාකාපු එකෙක් කොරණකම් බලා හිටපන්. උකුන්ගේ කැවුතු කණ්ඩ ඕනේ.
දැන් අපි ඉතින් වයසයිනේ. ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ තරුණ පරම්පරාව තමයි එන්න ඕනේ මේ ගවේෂණාත්මක මාධ්‍යවේදීන් හැටියට ඉස්සරහට.
මේ මෙස්සා අද රාත්‍රී 9ට සිරස ටීවී තුලින්.
Step away from the conventional art of storytelling. Get ready for the Newsfirst Breakfast Rundown with me, Zulfik Farzan.
Don't let the country go backwards.
சின்ன வயசுல இருந்து இப்போ வரைக்கும் எனக்கு நிறைய சப்போர்ட்ஸ் வந்து உங்கள்ட்ட இருந்து கிடைச்சிட்டு இருக்கு. மியூசிக் அப்படின்றது என்னை பொறுத்தவரையில் என்னோட ஒரு தனி உலகம். அது சின்ன வயசுல இருந்தே மியூசிக் அப்படின்றப்போ ஒரு வெறி. பாடணும், நல்லா பாடணும், நிறையா பேருக்கு என்ன தெரியணும் அப்படின்றது என்னோட ஒரு ஐடியாவாக இருந்துச்சு.
இதுக்கு மேலேயும் வந்து முன்னால் வர ரவுண்ட்ஸ்லேயும் வந்து மயூரன் வந்து வின் பண்ணி ஃபைனல் வரைக்கும் போகணுன்றது வந்து எங்களுடைய ஆசை.
நிறைய தோல்வியை சந்திச்சாச்சு. இனிமேல் இந்த தோல்வியை சந்திக்கும் போது அது அப்படியே இல்லை, இது இன்னும் போகணும், நம்ம இதில் இருக்கிறத இன்னும் நம்ம தேடிக்கணும், எனக்கு அதில் இருக்க ஆழம் இன்னும் புரியணும். ஸோ அதனால தான் நான் ஒவ்வொரு ஸ்டேஜையும் விடாமல், எனக்கு கிடைக்கிற ஒவ்வொரு வாய்ப்பையும் விடாமல், ஸோ பார்க்கலாம் அடுத்தடுத்த ரவுண்ட்ஸ்லையும் பெஸ்ட்டை, என்னோட பெஸ்ட்டை நான் 100% கொடுக்க போகிறேன். ஸோ வெயிட் அண்ட் வாட்ச்.
Every Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Tune in to Shakti TV.
TV1. TV for life.
This is a heated election period. Now, in such a situation, as you can see, our journalists in the newsroom are working day and night to give you the most accurate and recent election updates. Today, one of the most recent and the major development that we have is about the security that's deployed for election activities. Dithmini has been following this story from morning, taking it on radio and taking breaking and news alerts on deploying security for elections. Dithmini, tell us what major developments are there surrounding this story.
Yes, the Election Commission announced that the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security has agreed to deploy police officers as required for security for the presidential election, and this was also confirmed by the Secretary of the Ministry of Public Security, Vyani Gunathilaka, a short while ago. From other latest developments from the election today, bonds were placed for Sajid Premadasa to contest as a presidential election candidate, and 2 bonds were placed for 2 presidential candidates today. So these are some of the top stories that we'll be taking in our bulletin today.
Thank you, Dithmini, for giving us that brief, comprehensive report on the election updates. Now, apart from elections in Sri Lanka, we have some major developments happening around the world, and there were some landslides that caused major chaos in Kerala, and then the Venezuelan election took place, and protesters are going around near the presidential palace to protest against their current president. So, Jamal, give us a brief about the international top stories we have for today.
Certainly, Harshini, the most
heated and the most prominent international story that is coming out from foreign media is the assassination of the Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh when he was in Tehran attending the swearing-in ceremony of Iran's new president, Masoud Pezeshkian. He was assassinated earlier today by an airstrike, and Hamas have vowed to retaliate over that particular airstrike that killed their political leader, and they are claiming that it was Israel who carried out the airstrike. And in response to this, in news close from home, developments close from home, President Rehan Jayawickreme has decided to appoint 3 special committees which will look into security and economic related matters as a preliminary response to the potential outpour or the potential spillover effect that will be caused due to this recent escalation, because we know the conflict in Gaza has been taking place for quite some time, and this is the most recent development that has taken place. Those are the top stories from the foreign news and also closer to home. We will give you a detailed prognosis on our news. If you watch Primetime News tonight, we will give you a detailed prognosis from everything that is happening in the international scene and link it to how Sri Lanka will be affected and the repercussions that will happen to our region as well.
Thank you, Jamal. And that is a comprehensive report on what is happening in Sri Lanka and around the world. So watch our Primetime News on 9 p.m. to get a comprehensive idea on all these news stories.
TV1. TV for life. Newsfirst, face to face with Jamal Ratnayaka.
Welcome back to Face to Face. My guest tonight is Rehan Jayawickreme, representing the Samagi Janabalavegya. Rehan, before we went into the break, we spoke about politics, we spoke about the economy, we spoke about the SJB's plan and vision for the country. Let's talk about you, Rehan Jayawickreme, the politician. There have been some rumors and reports circulating that Rehan Jayawickreme is trying to assume or play the role that once former minister, who is unfortunately no longer with us, Mangala Samaravira, played a very crucial role back then. What are the truths or the inaccuracies of this statement?
You know, it was Mangala Samaravira who gave me my head start in politics.
Right.
It was Speaker Karu Jayasuriya also at the time who gave me my head start. It was Sajith Premadasa that gave me the platform.
Right.
So I would say that I would like to have a mix of all 3 of them. I would like to have Sajith Premadasa's patience, Mangala Samaravira's political acumen, and Karu Jayasuriya's, in Sinhala you would say, Parinata Bhave, experience. So those are the 3 leaders I try to emulate. So if they say that I am somewhat like Mangala, I take that as a compliment.
Well, you certainly have been making an impression in the Valigam electorate, because we saw in recent days how you had taken the role of the opposition leader, where you went around distributing smart classrooms through the Sakvala program. And it seems as if the opposition leader was also very impressed by your ventures. And I want to know, in a world, in a country where politicians do the bare minimum, why did you feel the need to assume that role and carry forward the task that the opposition leader had initiated?
That's a funny story, Jamal, because I remember speaking to the opposition leader about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I told him I really appreciate the Sakvala program what you're doing, because I see how poor schools are and how computers are a luxury to people. And then I remember asking Sajith Premadasa, my leader, I said, I know that you have to go around the country, but is it okay if I use your concept and use your Sakvala program? Then the first thing that he asked me was, he said, what about the funding? And I said, well, you have been an inspiration because you have been finding private funders for this. And I said, if you can do it in 300 something schools, I should be able to do it in 17. So the very next day I spoke to the Southern Province Educational Director. I said I would like to do this. We identified 17 schools in Waligama and Valipitiya, the Waligama electoral division,
right? Okay,
which has A-level schools, so O-level and A-level, so grade 1 to 13.
Okay.
So that was the guideline that we gave, because I didn't want to divert away from what my leader was doing, what Sajith Premadasa was doing. So then I immediately received feedback that I got approval, which is also, I think, my career as a junior politician who was the mayor of Waligama was always, you know, it had integrity. And I never let go of my principles. So the entire hierarchy knows this in Matara, starting from the divisional secretaries to everyone. So they gave me permission to do it. And then I called Sajith, the opposition leader, and I told him within 4 days that I found funding for this through the Agnes Vijay Surya Children's Home, which donated 1 billion to the Lady Ridgeway Hospital.
I see.
And I'm happy to say, Jayamal, that within 14 days, we were able to fully equip 100% of Waligama classrooms, grade 1 to 13, with the same package given by the opposition leader. But I couldn't have done this without his support.
I see.
And I thank him a million times for letting us shine.
So
and letting the children benefit by us shining.
Right, I see. Quite a Herculean task, and we congratulate you on that milestone. But at the same time, Rehan, you are just one young politician within the ranks of the SJB. Let's talk about what the SJB has in store for the youth of this country. Who are the young leaders within the SJB who are in the pipeline, waiting in the wings to assume larger, greater responsibilities? And what is your plan and vision for the youngsters of this country and those who are waiting to take on greater responsibilities?
You know, Jayamal, it's all about giving opportunity. I am an example of someone who was given an opportunity. My granduncles would have been politicians. You know, this nepotism thing is something I hear about all the time.
And you also, like it or not, fall into that basket?
I fall into that basket. But my granduncle, Montigo Jayawickreme, passed away in 2002. General Ranjan Wijeratne, my granduncle, passed away in 1991. So how does that concern me? I don't think being a relative of a politician should be a qualification, neither should it be a disqualification. I started politics at the grassroots. But let me tell you, when I won, the president at the time, the prime minister at the time, and a very powerful minister of his thoroughly objected to me being appointed as mayor of Waligama, or chairman of the Waligama Urban Council. And it was Mangala Samaravira, and if you know, and it was Mangala Samaravira, Kabir Hashim, and Malik Samaravikrama, but mainly it was Mangala and Kabir who insisted on the fact
and advocated for
that, you know, it has to be someone who can at least speak English in a tourist area, right? That was one of the things they said. And they also said, you know, give him this and he will show you how to work. So that is opportunity. We must give opportunity to youngsters, which is why you get youngsters from the SJB coming into platforms like this, Jayamal, and speaking. Where do we get this platform in any other party? Where do we get this opportunity? So that's one of the main reasons why I resigned as the vice chairman of the SJB Youth. Who in their right mind will do that before an election? I did that because me holding on to that position at the age of 38 years is not youth. I'm a father of 2 young children. And I don't classify as youth anymore.
So you're moving into the next phase of life.
I have to move on. But what happens if I hold on without moving on? I take away the opportunity for about 3-4 other young guys in their 20s to take over this mantle. So there has to be a time where we say goodbye to these things. We have an expiry date, just like any other thing or any other product. We have an expiry date. And why do we hold on to power? Why do we claim to be good Buddhist by holding on to power when letting go is a hallmark attribute of what Lord Buddha preached or Gautam Buddha taught us? So I believe that a single man cannot change his country. But one thing that our president-elect does have is he has a solid team. He has Harsha, he has Kabir, he has Iran, he has Mr. He has Mr. Ranjit Madhubandar. You know, there are plenty of politicians that we have, and look at the young ones we have. Look at Hirunika. Not talking about a judgment. I'm not going to talk about that here. But Hirunika to Hesha to Harshana Rajakaruna to Kavinda Jayawardena, these are only our MPs.
Right.
And next time, hopefully, we will be in with another new team. And we have a leader that listens. And we will formulate the best possible outcome for this country.
Right.
Which is not only centered around youth. A subcategory Jayamal can't change this country.
Yes.
It has to be a combination of various
categories.
And I urge the people of this country, use your vote wisely. Do not make the same mistake you made in 2019. Do not put this country through what it went through in 2019 by electing someone who was not worthy of becoming president.
Right.
Let me tell you why I chose Sajith Premadasa. His father passed away in 1993. He could have easily contested his father's stronghold in Central Colombo. Instead, a lot of people don't know this, but he chose Mulkirigala, which is not even an electorate, proper electorate in Hambantota. He chose Mulkirigala and he started from ground level. Got into parliament in the year 2000. Has 24 years of parliamentary experience behind him. And then he only left Hambantota in 2019. And believe it or not, Sajith Premadasa is the only UMPA or person from the SJB who has beaten former President Mahinda Rajapaksa at the election, and that was in 2002 when Sajith Premadasa polled the highest number of preferential votes in the Hambantota district. Another reason why I supported him is because I saw firsthand how many times Maithripala Sirisena offered him the PM-ship in 2015.
But he refused.
He refused. And a lot of people say, Asai Bayai. How is it Asai Bayai? It is holding on to your principles. It is holding on to your ethics. It is holding on to who you as a person. And he has proved that power, selected power and not elected power, makes no difference to him. Right? And he decided that he will come to this country elected through a ballot.
So was that the same principle that led him to reject presidency that was offered to him by Gotabaya Rajapaksa?
Jayamal, we actively took part in Aragalaya. You know my involvement in Aragalaya and Hirunika's involvement and my party's involvement.
Yes.
How could we have advised Sajith Premadasa, our leader, to go into bed with the same people that ruined the Gotabaya Rajapaksa regime?
Right.
And this was not, I have to set something straight, this was not a decision made by Sajith Premadasa himself. This was made by the working committee, by the parliamentary group meetings and the committees
of the SJB.
We all decided. And I myself told him, please do not accept this post.
Right. Because that's one criticism that is, or allegation that is levelled against Sajith Premadasa, saying that he shied away from responsibility when it was handed to him on a platter.
I want to ask the people of this country a question. Sajith Premadasa, let's say he was given the PM-ship and he accepted. Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigned and Sajith Premadasa became the president. Jayamal, what is the next step? Parliament has to vote, right?
Yes.
Do you honestly think that the SLPP would have voted for Sajith Premadasa? Do you think the people of this country think that? So ask yourself that. Don't fall prey to these rubbish rumors. This is all utter nonsense. This is not right. There has to be integrity. There has to be some sort of value when you're governing. And you cannot do it by being selected. You have to be elected. Now, even if I'm offered the national list, there are two reasons why I will not accept it. Number one, I don't think I deserve a national list spot at this time of my life or this stage of my career.
Right.
And number two, because I believe in being elected. But when you speak about the people that crossed over, two people that crossed over from our party were both nationalist MPs. What a pathetic thing to do. You know, to be given a nationalist slot by a party and you completely backstab that party and you go to a different party. Which is why I'll tell you another secret. Once the SJB gets into parliament, we will introduce an anti-crossover mechanism where if an MP who is elected by a particular party betrays the trust of the people and crosses over, like England, like the UK, we will set a by-election. And we will bring that in. Because this absolute disgusting method of crossing over has to stop.
You spoke very freely and very eloquently about the youth. What of those who make 52% of our population, female representation within the SJB and also the larger society of Sri Lanka? What does the SJB plan for them?
Out of that 52%, a vast number of them are rural women. Do you remember what happened when Sajith Premadasa, the then candidate in 2019, gave a pledge that all women in the country who can't afford to buy sanitary napkins will be given free sanitary napkins? What did they call him? They called him Padman. And what did he say at his meeting? He said, I wear that as a badge of honor. I am proud to be called Padman. So there's a massive amount of problems that women face in this country. And they amount to 52% of this population.
Yes.
We will tackle all of those problems. We will make sure that the person appointed to head the Women and Children's Bureau or the Women and Children's Ministry will be a woman. It will not be a man. We will ensure that free sanitary napkins will be given to all the women in the country who go through period poverty.
Right.
We will educate women on what it is to overcome poverty. We will create SMEs that will benefit women. We will empower women, and we will give women the respect that it deserves.
Right.
And the only person that can do that is Sajith Premadasa, and a government led by Sajith Premadasa.
And you hold true to that?
Mark my word. And if that does not happen,
where will Rehan Jayawickreme stand?
Gracefully exit and have early retirement.
Understood. Rehan Jayawickreme was my guest this evening, someone who is very vocal about his convictions and isn't afraid to express an opinion. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for Face to Face this evening. Thank you very much, Rehan, for joining me and being very candid with your thoughts and expressions as always.
Always a pleasure, Jayamal. Thank you.
I would like to leave our viewers with a quote, because it is after all election season and we all strive to appoint leaders who are always steadfast in their commitment towards the people and their country. The quote is, conformity is doing what everyone is doing regardless of what is right. Morality is doing what is right regardless of what everyone is doing. Let's hope that our leaders take this to heart and Sri Lanka becomes one of the most developed and prosperous nations come or following the 21st of September 2024. Thank you and good night.